Everyone says you're being smart. You're still working past 60, keeping the paycheck coming, delaying Social Security, and holding off on tapping into your savings. It feels responsible, practical, like you're avoiding the mistakes others make by retiring too soon. But here's the part no one tells you. Some of the biggest regrets in retirement don't show up until it's far too late to fix them. And they often come from doing what you thought was the right thing. The uncomfortable truth: you can be financially stable, physically healthy, and still walk straight into a retirement filled with quiet disappointments. Not because you didn't save enough, but because you made choices that slowly chipped away at your future without you even realizing it. Every year you keep working after 60 might feel like an investment in your future. But what if it's actually costing you more than it's giving? More time away from family, more wear on your body, more years lost to stress, pressure, or routines you no longer enjoy. And the saddest part? Many people don't realize what they've given up until they finally stop and realize they can't get it back. It's not about whether you retire early or late. It's about whether you truly own the choices you're making. In this video, we're going to look at 7 retirement moves that people over 60 often regret, but only after it's too late to undo them. If you're still working and trying to make the smartest decisions for your future, pay close attention, because what you're about to hear could save you years of quiet regret. Most people think waiting to claim Social Security is a no-brainer. You hear it everywhere. Delay as long as possible, and you'll get a bigger monthly check. Technically, that's true. The longer you wait, up to age 70, the more you receive. But what no one talks about is the gamble you're making by waiting too long. And for many people over 60, that gamble doesn't always pay off. Because the size of the check doesn't matter if you don't live long enough to enjoy it. Life has a way of throwing curveballs, health issues, layoffs, family responsibilities. The plan to wait until 68 or 70 to claim benefits can vanish overnight. Some people who wait end up needing the money sooner than expected, but by then, the delay has cost them years of payments they'll never get back. Others pass away before collecting a single dime, essentially leaving thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands, of dollars on the table. And while delaying might work out if you're in excellent health with a family history of longevity, that's not most people. The average retiree lives long enough for delayed benefits to break even, but barely. There's also the emotional cost. People push themselves to keep working longer than they want to, just to hit a certain Social Security milestone without ever questioning whether the trade-off is worth it. They sacrifice time with loved ones, hobbies, or rest, all for a higher benefit that might not make a meaningful difference in their day-to-day life. That's why some retirees look back and say, I should have just started when I could have, because at the end of the day, it's not just about squeezing out a few extra dollars, it's about having the freedom to enjoy them while you still can. There's a common belief that working just a few more years will give you the perfect retirement. More savings, more stability, more options. So you tell yourself you'll retire at 65, then maybe 67, then maybe just one more year. But what starts as a practical decision often turns into a pattern of delay that robs people of something far more valuable than money: time. And this is one of the biggest regrets retirees face, realizing too late that they waited for a version of retirement that never came. You see, people build this dream version of the future in their heads: the trips they'll take, the projects they'll finish, the days they'll finally relax. But life doesn't always wait. Energy fades, health shifts, interests change, and suddenly the adventures you imagined don't feel as exciting. The people you plan to travel with are busy or gone, and those years you spent grinding it out at work for just a little longer, they didn't add the joy you were hoping for. They just drained what you had left. Many retirees admit they stayed in jobs they didn't love just for the paycheck or out of fear of the unknown. But money can't replace time, and delaying retirement for a lifestyle you never end up living is one of the most quietly devastating decisions you can make. Because by the time you feel ready, you might not want the same things anymore. And that moment, that realization, is when regret sinks in, not because you didn't plan well, but because you forgot to ask yourself the most important question. Am I still working towards something I truly want, or just stuck in the habit of waiting? When you're over 60 and still working, it's easy to convince yourself that pushing through a little longer is worth it. You're building your nest egg, you're staying busy, and maybe you even feel a sense of pride in your work ethic. But there's a cost that doesn't show up on any financial statement: your health. And by the time many retirees realize what they've sacrificed, it's too late to reverse the damage. Ignoring your body's warning signs for the sake of one more paycheck is a decision people quietly regret more than almost anything else. The decline often starts subtly: less sleep, more stress, skipped workouts, meals eaten on the run, or not at all. You promise yourself you'll rest more next weekend, that you'll get to the doctor after this next deadline, that you'll slow down soon. But the truth is, that slow erosion adds up fast. Blood pressure climbs, chronic pain sets in, fatigue becomes the default instead of the exception. And while you're focused on showing up for work, your body is quietly breaking down. Many people over 60 are working through early warning signs of serious health issues, brushing them off as aging or stress. But by the time they retire, they find themselves spending more time in waiting rooms than enjoying the freedom they worked so hard for. And the harsh reality? Retirement money can't buy back lost health. No amount of savings makes up for years of physical neglect. That's why the regret hits so hard. Because in trying to be responsible, many people end up trading their healthiest years for just a little more financial security, and then discover that what they really needed was time, energy, and the strength to enjoy life outside of work. There's a strange attachment people have to their homes after 60. It makes sense. It's where memories live, where kids were raised, where life happened. But holding on to a house that no longer fits your needs can quietly become one of the most draining mistakes retirees make. The emotional connection is strong, but the financial and physical toll is stronger. What starts as comfort often turns into burden, and by the time many people realize it, they're too exhausted or overwhelmed to do anything about it. The upkeep doesn't slow down just because you have. There are repairs to manage, property taxes to cover, yards to maintain, and stairs that don't get any easier. For people in their 60s and 70s, that constant maintenance begins to chip away at both their budget and their body. What was once a symbol of independence slowly becomes a daily source of stress and a silent obstacle to flexibility. Then there's the opportunity cost. While your equity sits tied up in bricks and square footage you barely use, you could be living somewhere simpler, cheaper, and more suited to this stage of life. Downsizing early can free up money, reduce responsibilities, and even give you the chance to relocate to a place that actually supports your retirement lifestyle. But people wait, hoping they'll know when it's time, only to find themselves having to downsize in a rush due to illness, injury, or sudden life changes. That rush transition is where regret settles in. You're not just giving up space, you're giving up control. By the time you're forced to sell, your options narrow. What could have been an empowering decision becomes a stressful one, and what should have been a fresh start feels more like a loss. That's why so many retirees later admit they wish they had let go of the house sooner, on their own terms, while it still felt like a choice. For many people over 60, their investment portfolio is something they built years ago and haven't touched since. It's a mix of stocks, maybe some mutual funds, possibly a few bonds, set up during their working years to focus on growth. And that made sense when retirement was far away. But what many don't realize is that sticking with the same aggressive investment strategy into your 60s, or worse, your early retirement years, can quietly wreck everything you've worked for. It's not about timing the market. It's about how badly the market can time you. One of the most overlooked financial risks in retirement is something called sequence of returns risk. It's what happens when the market drops early in your retirement, right as you start withdrawing money. Even if the market recovers later, the damage is already done, because you sold investments at a loss to pay your bills, and those shares never get the chance to bounce back. People in their 60s who leave too much of their nest egg exposed to market swings often find themselves having to drastically reduce spending or delay retirement altogether. It's not about being scared of investing, it's about being smart with your timing. Retirement isn't just about growing your money anymore, it's about protecting it. And yet, many people continue holding high-risk assets because that's what they've always done, or because no one ever explained the danger of keeping a growth-heavy portfolio too late into the game. By the time the market takes a dip, it's too late to adjust, and that's when regret creeps in. Because the mistake wasn't in the crash, it was in never preparing for it. Retirees who look back often wish they'd made the shift sooner, moved some assets to safety, and taken a more balanced approach before the stakes got too high. It's easy to assume you and your partner are on the same page about retirement. After all, you've built a life together. You've had the money talks, maybe even looked at the numbers. But what many couples don't realize is that financial planning and retirement planning are not the same thing. One is about spreadsheets. The other is about lifestyle, identity, purpose, and this is where the miscommunication begins. One person might be dreaming of travel and early mornings on the porch, while the other imagines part-time work, volunteering, or staying close to the grandkids. And yet, because no one wants to rock the boat, these differences stay quiet until it's too late to align. This silence becomes one of the most painful regrets later on. Retirees who never had the deep, honest conversations about what retirement really looks like often find themselves living side by side with someone who feels like a stranger. One wants to spend more, the other wants to save. One craves adventure, the other wants comfort. Resentment builds, communication breaks down, and what should be a shared season of freedom starts feeling like a tug-of-war no one wins. It's not just spouses, either. Some people never talk to their adult children about retirement plans. They don't mention plans to downsize, move, or change how holidays look. Then decisions are made without context, and relationships suffer. Loved ones feel left out or blindsided, and it creates tension that could have been avoided with just a few conversations. The regret here is simple but deep, assuming that everyone already knows what you want. Retirement isn't a solo journey. It touches everyone around you. And the people who talk about it early, clearly, and often, they're the ones who step into it with fewer surprises and far fewer regrets. Most people spend decades preparing financially for retirement, saving, investing, running numbers, but very few ever stop to ask a more important question. What will my life actually look like when the work stops? It's easy to think retirement will feel like freedom, but the truth is, many people step into it without a clue how they'll fill their time. And that gap between expectation and reality hits hard. One of the most overlooked and deeply felt regrets retirees express is not test driving retirement before making it permanent. They go from full schedules and structured days to an ocean of empty time, and instead of feeling liberated, they feel lost. The shift can be jarring. You wake up with nowhere to be, no coworkers, no meetings, no deadlines. It sounds relaxing until the silence sets in. Without purpose or routine, days start to blur. Hobbies that once felt exciting don't fill the space like you thought they would. Travel gets exhausting, and the question quietly creeps in, is this all there is? People often assume they'll figure it out once they get there, but that rarely works. Retirees who didn't ease into the lifestyle by taking extended time off, reducing work hours, or experimenting with new routines often find themselves unprepared for the psychological adjustment. Some spiral into boredom or depression. Others go back to work, not for money, but for meaning. And by then, it's not always easy to rebuild what was lost. This regret doesn't show up in your bank account. It shows up in your mindset, your energy, your sense of identity. That's why the smartest move isn't to wait and see. It's to start living pieces of your retirement before you retire. Because the worst surprise isn't running out of money, it's retiring into a life that doesn't feel like yours. When people think about retirement regrets, they usually imagine financial mistakes, bad investments, missed savings goals, claiming benefits too early. But when you talk to real retirees, the regrets that stick the longest aren't about money at all. They're about time lost, conversations never had, health ignored, opportunities missed. They're about working longer than necessary out of fear or habit, only to realize too late that life doesn't wait for your perfect plan. And that's the truth most people don't hear until they're already on the other side of it, retired, looking back, wishing someone had told them sooner. If you're over 60 and still working, this is the moment to pause and ask yourself, are you delaying retirement for reasons that actually matter to you? Or are you postponing it because it feels safer, because everyone else is doing it, or because you're afraid of the unknown? None of these reasons are wrong, but they need to be conscious, intentional choices. Because the quiet regrets, the ones people carry deep into retirement, usually come from the choices they didn't even realize they were making. You don't have to retire tomorrow, but you do need to start thinking bigger than just your paycheck or your portfolio. Think about your health, your freedom, your relationships, the way you want to spend your time, not just your money. The truth is, retirement isn't a finish line, it's a doorway, and how you walk through it will shape the next chapter of your life. Just make sure you're walking through it on your terms, not looking back one day, wondering what could have been different if you'd seen the signs sooner.